Hi, this is Saige, and today we're going to go over nail trimming. So we're going to start out with equipment, and I do have 3 different types of nail trimmers here. I have my large nail trimmers for bigger dogs with thicker nails, my smaller ones, and then I also have, you'll often find these online listed as cat nail trimmers. I do like that they have a very small little hole, and sometimes I use them on the dogs as well, because you'll have dogs where that nail curls very tight to the paw pad. And sometimes you don't have enough room with this style of trimmer to get between the paw pad and the nail and get it cut without pinching the paw pad. So sometimes I will use the cat nail trimmers on dogs because it gives me that space to sneak in there between the paw pad and the nail and cut it without pinching it. And then finally, we do have a Dremel. Now, you'll find these in all different sizes and styles, and there's a number of different brands. Whatever works for you is comfortable for your hand. I'm today using an actual Dremel brand one, and I do have the smaller diamond head that I bought separately and put on there. But again, you can use whatever style works for you best. So before we start, I want to talk a little bit about handling. What I see a lot of mistakes being made is the way that people are holding the dogs while they're doing the nail trimming. So we all know most dogs don't particularly enjoy getting their nails trimmed, but we can do a lot of things to make it more comfortable, safe, and enjoyable for them. And the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that this here is Rufus, and Rufus is an older dog. He's a little bit of a senior citizen. So just naturally at his age, he's going to start to develop some lack of motion and mobility and range of motion in his joints. And he may even start to develop some arthritis or some joint issues in his hips or ankles, legs, knees, shoulders, any of these places. So I want to be really aware of that and really conscious of how much I'm manipulating his limbs and joints, because I may think that he's reacting negatively to getting his nails trimmed, when in reality, maybe he's just reacting negatively to the fact that I'm overextending his leg and it's hurting his joints or his arthritis. So when I'm working on dogs for nail trims, I'm going to lower my table a little bit. For these little guys, I do like to have a little room to be able to bend over them. I like to use my body as one of the points of control and contact. So I'm going to hold him against me. I personally like to always have them facing on my left side. That way I can pick up the nails and the feet, and I can be looking at the bottom of that paw pad while still securing him at a number of points with my body. So in this case, I have his body against mine, so he's secured here. I also have this arm that's kind of giving him a range of motion and containment with my arm over his head and shoulders. I have my hand here on his paw pad so I can hold his paw, and then my other arm I can reach around and hold his back in. If he chooses to sit and he's comfortable enough for that, I'm going to definitely allow him to do that. If he were standing up, I could secure him this way, and I'll actually sometimes fold them against my body and use this arm to hold them gently but snugly against my chest or stomach. And this gives me a lot of control of his back end. If he's fighting a little more and kicking, I can even sometimes lift them up off the table and gently and comfortably secure them against my body without hurting them, and have a lot more hold that way. If he's a little larger, I can slip one arm under a leg here, and I'm going to have a nice gentle way to control him this way as well. Now he's pretty comfortable, so I'm going to let him stand or sit as he sees fit, and I'm going to go to pick up this foot. So you can see he's anticipating what I'm going to do, and he's starting to pull his foot away. That's okay. And I want to always let him know where I'm going and what I'm doing. So I'm going to slide my hand down, and I'm just going to very gently pick it up. Now, speaking of the range of motion, you'll notice I'm allowing him to tell me physically how high he's willing to lift this foot. He may not be able to lift it out towards you very far or very high this way, because as you can see, when I lift it high, it lifts his entire shoulder blade up. And if he has any shoulder stiffness, that's not going to be comfortable for him. So I want to keep his foot as close to that table as I can and not overextend anything. But in this position, I can look at the bottom of each and every one of these nails, including his dew claw, without overextending or picking up his foot too high. And while in this position, I can hold my nail clippers and cut the nails while still using my elbow and forearm to secure him against my body. So now I'm going to get in here and trim some of these toenails and cut. Okay. All right, so now we're going to get into actually trimming the nails, and hoping you can see this very clearly here on Rufus. You can kind of see the pink line inside the nail because he does have white nails, where the blood vessel or the quick is going to be inside that nail. And we obviously don't want to cut so short that we cut into the blood vessel or quick. So if I had, say I couldn't see that line, or I had a dog with black toenails, I would not be able to see the quick. So what I would do is start shaving off a little bit of nail at a time. And I'm just taking a tiny little bit. And I'm going to shave it off until I can see the little dot in the center of the nail. So you'll see the outer shell of the nail. You'll see the white tissue of the nail, which is the actual keratin and the dead tissue. Much like on my fingernails, you see pink and then white. And then in the very, very center is a dark little circle. That circle means I'm approaching the sheath that holds the nail quick or blood vein. So when I see that little dark, dark circle inside, I'm going to stop there. You will also see this spot on black toenails as well, and that'll give you your indication of when to stop. The other way to look at it is you can also feel when you're cutting on the nail. When you're cutting dead nail that needs to come off, it feels brittle and dry. And when you start getting to the more live tissue approaching that quick inside, it will start to feel softer and more like live, vibrant tissue. And when you're closing your nail cutters, you'll feel that become less brittle and more soft, and you'll know you're approaching that spot. All right, now we're gonna go a little bit into nail dremeling, and we're gonna dremel that toe on him. I'm gonna do all my holds exactly the same. And my one note I do want to say about dremeling is two things. One, if you hold this Dremel in one spot for a long period of time, more than 2 seconds, let's say, it will start to create friction heat on what it's rubbing against. So you don't want to hold it still in one spot, or it will start to create heat, and it can actually burn a dog's skin or your skin. The other thing you want to be really hyper aware of is where long hair or coat is next to where I'm dremeling. It is very, very easy with some of these Dremel heads for it to catch in the long ear hair, tail hair, or even sometimes the body hair, and it will instantly wrap around your Dremel head and pull the hair out. I have seen it actually pull chunks of hair out and leave raw skin where it did so. So that's something we need to be very aware of when we're using Dremels, especially very high-powered ones or the larger ones. So when I go to Dremel Rufus's toenail here that we've already trimmed, hey buddy, good boy. I am going to make sure that I'm not up against where his body hair might get caught into the Dremel. And I'm also going to use my fingers to pull back the hair around the toenail so that it's out of the way and I don't risk getting it caught in my Dremel head. And then I'm going to turn my Dremel on. And I don't want to just go in and start tabbing it to the nail because the nail is going to move around. It's not going to be very efficient, and it's going to be a little uncomfortable for the dog. So I want to secure that nail with my finger underneath it so that it's holding still and I have something I can press against. And then we're just going to gently go around the whole edge of the nail, and we're going to make sure that it's smooth and there aren't any little jagged edges, and also that it's more symmetrical. And I want to try to bring down this top part of the nail more than the back part. So the front tip needs to be rounded a little more than the part that's closest to the paw pad. And that's going to give me a shorter nail for a longer period of time on that grow out. And it's going to allow me to get it shorter. The closer we can get to that sheath holding the quick or the vein each time they're here, when we get really close to it, as the dog walks for the next week or two, the pressure on that sheath holding the vein will slowly cause that vein to recede back into the nail, and that'll give us a shorter nail every time they visit. So our goal is to get as close to that quick as possible and expose it as much as possible without actually cutting into it and making the dog bleed. And then if we do accidentally sometimes get into that sheath and make the dog bleed, we are going to first apologize to the dog. It doesn't feel very good, and tell them I'm sorry. You know, we've broken their trust a little bit when they're trusting us to their nails. But we're also going to get some quick stop, and we're going to dab that on the end to get it to stop and make sure that that's all cleaned up, and maybe give the dog a break. Sometimes when we're doing nails, they're a little nervous, their blood pressure is a little higher. It might cause that clipped nail to bleed more or to take longer to stop bleeding and to coagulate if they're a little bit high blood pressure. So sometimes I'll dab a little quick stop on there, put them back in the kennel, and give them 5 or 10 minutes to just take a breather and relax and wait for that nail to stop bleeding before I move on to the next step, or try to start cleaning up the hair around where the blood has gotten on. All right, and we did go over picking up the front legs and range of motion for that, but I did just want to make a note on the back legs, and especially if they're having a hard time and they're physically, you know, fighting against you for this, I do like to reach an arm over them this way, and you can support them and still pick up the back foot. And especially with our older dogs, and speaking of their arthritis, that's often more in the knees and hips and the back legs than anywhere else. So when I pick up this foot, I am going to let him put it where he is comfortable. So with some dogs, they're fine coming out like this, a little bit more away from their body, or like with him, he kept it tucked in tight. He lifted it for me, but he kept his hip tight in. He's telling me that's where he's most comfortable, and I'm going to honor that and listen, and I'm not going to try to flex his hip out away from his body. I'm going to let him put it where it's comfortable, stop there, and then hold it in that position where he is comfortable putting it. If you just slide your hand down and let these dogs know where you're going to pick up the foot, they'll anticipate that you're about to pick up their foot, and they'll usually lift it for you and put it where they're physically comfortable. And I'll use that, and then I can see every single nail on his back foot comfortably for me, and he's also in a place where he's comfortable, and I'm not hyperextending this foot too high. I never want to see their feet be lifted higher than their knee joints on any dog ever.